Dr. Elena Reyes pressed her palm against the viewport, her reflection ghostly against the endless black. The Artemis research platform rotated slowly, debris from the meteor impact still drifting around it like a macabre dance of metal confetti. The emergency lights cast everything in a crimson glow, making the floating ice crystals from the breached cooling system sparkle like rubies. Day 15 since impact, she spoke into her personal recorder. Main oxygen recyclers failed 3 hours ago. Backup systems operating at 32% capacity. Estimated remaining oxygen, 18 hours. A soft whine drew her attention. Nova, her genetically engineered fox companion, pressed against her leg. The small creature's russet fur was illuminated by the emergency lights, the bioluminescent markers engineered into her DNA glowing a gentle blue along her spine. Elena reached down to stroke the fox's head, drawing comfort from the warm body. At least we're not alone, right? Elena whispered, her voice catching. Though I'm sorry I got you into this mess, little one. Nova had been her research subject and companion for the 2-year mission studying adaptations to zero-gravity environments. The fox was a marvel of genetic engineering, enhanced intelligence, modified lungs to process reduced oxygen more efficiently, and a specially designed digestive system. She was supposed to help humanity prepare for long-term space habitation. Now, they would die together in the cold emptiness. Elena moved to the communications array, adjusting the makeshift repairs she'd cobbled together after the impact had shattered the main antenna. The standard distress beacon was functioning, but out here in the research sector beyond Mars orbit, the chances of anyone picking it up were astronomically small. All scheduled supply ships were months away. No response to distress signals, she continued recording. Station structural integrity at critical levels. Section B7 completely depressurized. Core temperature dropping. A tear escaped despite her best efforts, floating away in the microgravity. Elena had known the risks when she volunteered for this solo mission, periods of extreme isolation punctuated by brief supply drops. The research was groundbreaking, the chance to study Nova's adaptations potentially revolutionary for future space exploration. But now, none of that mattered. She drifted to her sleeping quarters, Nova following with graceful leaps that showed how perfectly she had adapted to the weightless environment. Elena opened the small locker beside her bunk and removed a photograph, her sister's family on Earth, smiling under a blue sky she might never see again. I've tried everything, she whispered to Nova, who curled against her in the air, providing warmth and comfort. The communications are just too damaged. Elena's fingers found the small device tucked in her pocket, a neural transmitter that allowed her to sense Nova's emotional state, part of her research into human-animal bonds in isolated environments. Even now, she could feel the fox's confusion and concern flowing through their connection. I know, girl. I'm scared too. The station creaked ominously, another section likely failing under the stress of damage. Elena secured Nova in her specially designed harness, then tethered herself to the emergency shelter, a reinforced section of the station that might buy them a few more hours if the worst happened. If anyone finds this recording, Elena spoke with newfound steadiness, the research data is stored in the black box. It matters. What we discovered here matters. She paused, stroking Nova's luminescent back. And please tell my family I wasn't alone at the end. As if understanding the gravity of their situation, Nova pressed her cold nose against Elena's cheek, her large eyes reflecting the emergency lights. Through their neural connection, Elena felt not fear but a strange calm emanating from the fox. Outside, the stars continued their distant, indifferent twinkling. Somewhere among them, unbeknownst to Elena, a small cargo ship was about to change course. Jack Harlow's fingers danced across the worn controls of the Stardust Drifter, his cargo ship that had seen better decades. The cabin smelled of coffee and engine oil, a combination he'd grown to love during his 15 years hauling supplies between Mars colonies and the outer research installations. Dispatch to Drifter, you're veering off approved route. Correct course immediately, a stern voice crackled through the comm. Jack took a slow sip from his chipped mug before responding. Just avoiding a debris field, dispatch. No need to get your regulators in a twist. That was a lie. The debris field was his excuse for the detour he'd been planning for weeks. The corporate shipping routes were efficient but boring, and Jack had spotted an anomalous reading on long-range scans during his last run. Something worth investigating, maybe valuable salvage from an abandoned mining operation. Drifter, return to designated course or face contract violation penalties. That sector isn't cleared for commercial traffic. Jack switched off the comm with a flick of his thumb. At 43, he'd spent most of his adult life following someone else's routes. His silvering temples and the scar bisecting his left eyebrow were testaments to the few times he'd broken the rules. Usually worth it. The ship's aging scanner suddenly pinged, an alert tone Jack hadn't heard in years. Well, I'll be damned, he muttered, adjusting the gain. A distress signal. The message was fragmented, corrupted by radiation and distance, but unmistakable. Someone was alive out there. He pulled up the signal origin on his NAV system. The Artemis research platform. He vaguely remembered dropping supplies there 8 months ago, some scientist with a strange pet. The platform wasn't scheduled for resupply for another 3 months. AI, run signal analysis. The ship's artificial intelligence responded in its gender-neutral voice. Distress beacon indicates critical life support failure. Oxygen depletion imminent. Estimated time to complete system failure, 17 hours, 22 minutes. Jack rubbed his stubbled jaw, calculating. If he diverted now, he'd miss his delivery window at Europa Station. The company would fine him at minimum, possibly terminate his contract. He'd built his reputation on reliability despite his occasional detours. Plot intercept course, he said finally. Maximum safe velocity. Warning, course adjustment will result in contract violation. Penalty Clause 7B will apply. Estimated fine, 80,000 credits. Jack grimaced. That was almost his entire profit margin for the quarter. Sometimes you've got to choose between your wallet and your soul, AI. Execute course change. As the Stardust Drifter banked toward the distant research platform, Jack began pulling up the schematics he'd need. The ship shuddered as its aging engines pushed beyond recommended parameters, acceleration pressing him into his seat. AI, prepare emergency oxygen tanks and medical kit. And get me everything you've got on the Artemis facility. Accessing files. Artemis research platform. Current occupant, Dr. Elena Reyes, xenobiologist, specializing in genetic adaptations to space environments. An image appeared on his screen, a woman with intense dark eyes and a serious expression, her black hair pulled back in a practical style. Something about her determination resonated with him. Current mission parameters include long-term isolation study and ongoing observation of genetically modified organism designated Nova. The ship's AI displayed an image of what appeared to be a fox with unusual bioluminescent markings along its spine. Jack raised his eyebrows. So I'm risking my livelihood for a woman and her glowing pet fox. Perfect. But as the Stardust Drifter accelerated toward the damaged station, Jack found himself checking the life support readings with increasing frequency. 17 hours wasn't much time, and the journey would take 14 at best. He'd cut it close before, delivering critical medical supplies during the Mars colony outbreak, evacuating miners from a collapsing asteroid shaft. But something about this rescue felt different. More personal. Jack switched the comm back on. Dispatch, this is Drifter. I'm responding to a distress call from Artemis Research Platform. Request emergency clearance and support. The long silence that followed told him everything he needed to know. He was on his own. Well, Dr. Reyes, he murmured to the image on his screen, hold on just a little longer. I'm coming to get you. Elena startled awake as an alarm blared through the station. Nova leapt up, the blue markings along her spine pulsing rapidly with agitation. Proximity alert, the station's damaged AI announced, voice distorting. Unscheduled vessel approaching. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs as she propelled herself to the command console, hope and disbelief warring within her. The radar display flickered, showing an approaching ship where none should be. This is impossible, she whispered, hands trembling as she attempted to boost the comm system's power. Artemis to approaching vessel, do you copy? Please respond. Static crackled before a deep, rough voice broke through. Dr. Reyes. This is Jack Harlow, independent cargo vessel Stardust Drifter. Picked up your distress signal. Looks like you could use a ride. Tears welled in Elena's eyes, floating away as tiny spheres in the microgravity. You're real. A low chuckle came through the damaged speakers. Last time I checked. Listen, your station's surrounded by debris. Need you to guide me in. What's your docking situation? Elena swallowed hard, forcing her scientist's mind to focus. Main airlock was damaged in the impact. Emergency dock on the research module still intact, but proximity sensors are offline. You'll need to approach manually, it's incredibly dangerous. Dangerous is my middle name, document. Despite everything, Elena found herself smiling. Actually, the station's rotation has become unstable. You'll have approximately 30-second windows to align and dock before you're hit by the debris field again. Well, nobody said this would be easy, Jack responded, tension now evident in his voice. I'm starting my approach. Keep this channel open. Elena watched through the viewport as a battered cargo vessel appeared, maneuvering cautiously through the debris. Nova pressed against the transparent barrier, her luminous markings pulsing in rhythm with Elena's accelerated heartbeat. Neural connection intensifying, Elena noted absently, the scientific part of her mind still functioning despite her stress. The Fox seemed to understand exactly what was happening. Through the comm, she could hear Jack's controlled breathing as he navigated the treacherous approach. Talk to me about something, document keeps me steady. Elena searched for something, anything, to say. Nova, my Fox, she seems excited to meet you. She's pressing her nose against the viewport watching your ship. A glowing Fox, huh? Can't wait to meet her too. What else does she do besides glow? Elena found herself describing Nova's genetic modifications, the neural link they shared, how the Fox had become far more than a research subject during their time in isolation together. Speaking calmed her racing heart, grounding her in familiar scientific territory. The station shuddered violently, throwing Elena against the bulkhead. What was that? Jack's voice came sharp over the comm. Another structural failure, Elena reported, checking the diagnostics. Oxygen levels dropping faster now. We're down to less than 5 hours. Then we'd better not waste time, Jack replied. Coming in for final approach. Next rotation alignment in 20 seconds. Elena watched, breath held, as the Stardust Drifter positioned itself, thrusters firing in precise bursts. The cargo ship was weathered but handled with remarkable precision, dancing through the debris field with a grace that spoke of exceptional piloting. 10 seconds to alignment, she counted down. Nova, secure yourself. As if understanding, the Fox leapt into her travel harness, securing herself with practiced ease. 5, 4, 3. The ship surged forward, perfectly timed to match the rotation of the emergency dock. Metal scraped against metal as magnetic clamps engaged. Got it. Jack's triumphant voice filled the station. Establishing pressure seal now. Elena gathered Nova in her arms, the Fox's warmth a comfort against the station's increasing chill. Through their neural link, she sensed not fear but anticipation from her companion. I need to see what we're dealing with before you board, Jack said. Pressure's equalizing. I'm coming through. The airlock cycled, and Elena found herself face to face with her rescuer. Jack Harlow was tall, broad-shouldered, with silver threading through his dark hair and a scar bisecting one eyebrow. His eyes, a startling pale blue, widened slightly at the sight of her. Dr. Reyes, he said simply, extending a gloved hand. Elena, she corrected, taking his hand, surprised by the strength in his grip. And this is Nova. The Fox's markings glowed brighter as she regarded Jack with intelligent curiosity. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, two souls connecting in the vastness of space, drawn together by impossible odds. We need to move fast, Jack said, not releasing her hand. Your station's falling apart around us. Elena nodded, suddenly acutely aware of how long it had been since she'd touched another human being. Thank you for coming. Most people wouldn't have risked it. Jack's mouth quirked into a half-smile that transformed his weathered face. I'm not most people. No, Elena agreed softly, something warm unfurling in her chest despite the desperate situation. I'm beginning to see that.